All right. Thank you again for joining us this morning at the Cary Center Nonprofit Summit. We are thrilled to have you at our first virtual summit. Thank you for joining us this morning in this breakout session to learn more about board development and best practices with Burton Crenshaw, who is the president of the Central Alabama Community Foundation. Before we get started, I just want to do a quick reminder that if you have any questions or any technical difficulties at any point today, you can visit the help desk, which is the main meeting room where Brittany and Lynn are going to be stationed all day. And at the end of this session, we'll give you information about how to move on to the next session of your choice. Now, please join me in welcoming our speaker, Burton Crenshaw. Burton was born and raised in Montgomery, Alabama, and she is a graduate of Hollins University with a degree in computational science. She began her career with Compass Bank in 1990 as a private banker, and then in 1993, Burton helped to start the trust department for South Trust Bank's Montgomery office. After spending several years at home with her children, she became the development director for the Central Alabama Community Foundation in 2008. After 3 years with the foundation, Burton was promoted to president in 2011. She is a 2013 graduate of Leadership Montgomery and a 2017 graduate of Leadership Alabama. Burton currently serves on the advisory board for Auburn University's Masters of Public Administration. Burton's role at the Community Foundation is to represent the foundation in both donor relations and nonprofit grant making. The foundation currently covers 10 counties in Alabama with an asset size of $75 million. The Central Alabama Community Foundation provides grants to other nonprofits at an average of $5 million every year. Burton is married to Greenville native Clay Crenshaw, and they have 4 children. Thank you so much, Burton, for joining us today.
Well, thank you. I appreciate y'all having me, and this is a new way of doing these conferences, so we're just gonna work our way through it. If anybody has any questions, please put it in the chat. Will you give me a few minutes heads up when we're getting close to time? Okay, great, thank you. All right, so we don't really have a whole lot of time to talk about board development, or as much as I would like to, because we could spend hours, but I am going to try and just hit the highlights of everything. So once again, if you have any questions along the way, put them in the chat. I'm going to try to keep watching for that. So as all of y'all know, because you're in here, the board for a nonprofit organization is a tremendous asset for the organization. But if you do not build your board correctly, then they aren't going to be a great asset. Look at them as kind of unpaid staff in a way, because they are going to bring expertise and guidance and assistance that you could probably never pay a salary or a staff person to do in the nonprofit world. So we're going to start off with what it needs to look like. How's your board need to be structured? I think that's probably where nonprofits kind of run into a snag. I don't want to say a fail, but a run into a snag because they put people on their board that, of course, love their organization. That's what you always want, but they don't bring them on in a strategic way. You need board members on there in a strategic way, and for them to know that they're on that board for that particular skill set that they can bring to your organization. So as you'll see on this sheet, and I'm assuming everybody can see this because it looks like it's sharing it on my end. So you need to break up your board in what I kind of like to look at as thirds. So first off, of course, you need people on your board that are going to help you raise money for your organization. Because as we know, nonprofits, we're always raising money. Even when we think, oh, maybe we're good, then something like the pandemic hits and we're spending money on items we didn't budget for. So you're always going to need people that can help you. Those can be not only some of your major donors, because if they're already donating to you at a good percentage or a good dollar amount, they believe in your organization. So they can then sell your organization to other potential donors. They can give your story in a way that is a personal and touching way. But there are also people out there that they're just good at that. We always hear, oh, I hate to raise money. I hate to ask people for money. Well, if you don't ask, it's a definite no, in my opinion. So asking for money is not for everybody, and we all understand that. But there's some people that are just better at it than others. I personally don't take it, as an offense when someone tells me no when I ask them for money. I just consider it as a no right now. And we kind of laugh in that, oh, I'll come back, or I'll keep giving you different scenarios that might pique your interest. And one of these days, you may have an interest in our nonprofit and our organization for your philanthropic needs. So always have people on there that are going to be fundraisers for your organization. The next is you need to have those people that bring their professional expertise to your board. Every nonprofit cannot have a lawyer on retainer, a CPA on staff, possibly. They might have a bookkeeper, or they might, depending on their size, be able to hire a CPA. But you always need an external set of eyes when it comes to the professional world. So we always like to see not only a accountant on your board, a CPA preferably, possibly one that does specialize in nonprofits, but also have an attorney, a lawyer on your board, because you just never know when you might need them to help write a donor intent letter for you, or maybe help draft your bylaws. Or you may have a personnel matter that needs some legal attention. You just never know. And even if you're leasing office space, you'll want them to read over your office lease. So it's always good to have them on staff. Now, you may always have a time where not always, but you may have a time when you would want to pay somebody for this service. Like when you do your audit and your 990, you would need to have somebody removed from the board, not a board member that's going to do this work because of the confidentiality and conflicts of interest that come into play. But it's always nice to have those type of expertise on your board. You may even want an investment advisor, investment broker. If you and your nonprofit have money like us at the Community Foundation, we invest, the majority of our money. So we need some of those professionals that can help us in that arena, because as much as investing in the stock market world and all that interests me, I'm not an expert by any means. And plus, I need to spend my time doing other things. So board members are perfect for this opportunity. And then, of course, you need people that are connected on a community level and maybe have expertise in your nonprofit's field. Maybe you do advocacy work, and so you need somebody that works in that field, or somebody from the law enforcement community. If you're doing work in inner city settings, you may need somebody from city or the police department that can help with learning exactly what is going on in those communities and what their needs are from that level. What are they seeing? And they can also help you with the key people in those areas. They can help make those connections for you in your organization. I know this sounds very, what's the right word I'm looking for? Elementary or common sense, but you'd be surprised if you went and sat down and looked at your board. I put together a graph, and it lists everything from male, female, ethnicity, over to occupation. And we put together a chart that so that we can see where we're lacking. Do you have too many females on your board? Do you not have enough females? Are you not covering all the geographic areas in your community? Do you have a lawyer? Are you utilizing them in that role? So as elementary as this all might sound, you may be surprised when you go back and look at your board of directors and that composition as to what that actually looks like. So that is, let's see how I'm gonna, there we go. So the next area that we recommend is the different committees of your board. Just as you build your board with the different skill sets that those board members meet, then you need to make sure they're on the right committees within your board, because you can't ask every board member to help with everything in your organization. So it's best to set up different committees and put those people that their skill set fits best for that. So those people that are there to help you raise money, they need to be on your development committee. And those that are better suited for the type of work you do, then they're on your program committee. Because that program committee are the ones that are helping oversee the programs that the staff are actually doing. We always tell our board members, the staff is going to do the work. You're there to help advise us and come beside us as another staff person that can bring a little more expertise that we're not having to pay. But the real, down and dirty work, the staff will do. Now, you will always have those board members that will get right there in the trenches with the staff, which is fabulous, because you can't ever have enough volunteers. But then you'll also need either a finance committee or an investment committee, depending on what you have. But your finance committee, of course, would have your individual board members that are more financially inclined. Each of these committees will need to have a chairman, and that's usually what would make up your executive committee of your board. It's always good to have a smaller group, an executive committee, that you can go to if you need something done on a very quick turnaround, on an emergency basis, or such that you can't call your full board in for, then your executive committee. And that would be your chairman, your vice chairman, your treasurer, then head of your development committee and your program committee. Your treasurer will serve as your finance committee chair as well. So that kind of covers two roles. But those people are the ones that you can go to and say, I need your approval for this really quick, or I need something else to discuss with you real quick, or I've had a staff person leave and I need to hire someone really quick, or whatever it is. If you can't pull your full board together, you'll need this executive committee that can help give you that guidance and any approval you might need based on your bylaws. And so all of those will then work within themselves and work with each other's committee, because of course the program committee and the development committee need to work closely together, because the program committee needs to know how much money they have to work with, but then the development committee needs to know how much money does the program committee need. So they work hand in hand, and we do see that those two committees don't talk as much as they probably should. because those two things that come together, especially when it comes to how much money you have for a program or how much money your program needs. So those need to always be in communication. Then, of course, the finance committee will need to know how to manage that money for that, both those areas. So those are both, you know, you'll see, then each committee chairman can make a report at your board meeting. And that way, everybody's not trying to talk about how do we plan this next event or how do we plan this next program at your board meeting, because those meetings need to be limited to the very important matters that need to be presented to the board, not the stuff that's in the weeds. So your committees will work through some of the weeds and then make a report to the board, rather than try to plan anything that can be done on a committee or staff level at your board. Because your board members are there as volunteers, so you need to be cognizant of their time that they are giving you away from their paid job, so that you're giving them the information that they need to help give you that approval or advice or whatever at the board meeting. So let me check to make sure if I see any chat questions. I'm not seeing anything, I don't think. Does anybody put anything up there that I'm missing? Oh, wait, let's see. Oh, wait, sorry, it was blocked. Let's see. Oh, it's just that. Okay, sorry. It's just the links for the next one. So let's go to the next slide. Let's see here. Well, let's see here. Okay, there we go. All right. So this next set is what we consider the best practices for your boards. And once again, you may think, well, of course, I know how to do all that, or I already do all that. But I bet if you sat down and really looked at each one of these 8 points, you might not be doing it to the level you need to be doing it. So the first thing that we recommend is that you put together a job description that outlines what is expected of that board member. And I've got an example to show you in a little bit, but what's expected of that board member? How many meetings do you expect them to come to? Wait, I think I see another chat coming through. All right, so the question was, should the development committee member actually be on the finance committee? They can, but the chairman of each of those committees is on the executive committee, and so they may not actually have to be on the finance committee, because then you're asking them to possibly be on more than one committee, and you may be stretching their time, because you're asking them to come to committee meetings and to go to board meetings. And so to add them to another committee might be a stretch. But the executive committee can talk about, the finance committee chairman and the development committee chairman can have conversations independently of those committee meetings. They can either, email or at the executive committee level. So it's not always that you've got to have them, even though they need to be talking, but the committee chairman can talk a lot easier than having to go to a bunch of different committee meetings. So I hope that helps answer that question. Let's see. All right. Aren't board member roles also defined in bylaws? They are defined to a degree, but you do not, the job description that I am talking about now would not be described would not be outlined in your bylaws to the degree that this job description will. You don't want to put it in that much detail in your bylaws, because it might change. And if it changes, like how many meetings you have a year, or how many meetings you want your board to come to, how many meetings you have a year will probably be in your bylaws. But how many meetings you have your board members that you're wanting them attend, or other duties you're wanting them to do, if any of that should change, then you have to change your bylaws. And it's not good to change your bylaws frequently. You want to read over them at least annually and see if there's anything that needs changing, but you don't want to put stuff in there that might be fairly fluid. You want to keep things in your bylaws specific enough, because you need to, they have to be, but also not such that they might change and then you have to change your bylaws. But the job descriptions would be everything from attend committee meetings and provide board support, give you a donation, provide any, I've just drawn a blank to what I was thinking of, make any referrals of potential donors. Those types of things you'll want in your job description. You will also want them to sign this agreement. It's not a binding agreement. It's nothing legal. It's nothing like that. But at least you know and they know what's expected of them. It's also good if you're asking someone to become a board member, or you have a board member that is soliciting new board members for you, share this with them before they agree to be on the board. That way they know up front, if they say yes, what's expected of them. And it's very important to revisit this with them throughout the year. And we're going to get to that in a minute, of something that we recently have started doing that has been kind of a fun little exercise. And so clear financial giving expectations. Every board member for a nonprofit pretty much knows, yeah, I'm supposed to make a donation. But we as nonprofits don't always do a good job of following through and making sure they do that. So even though it's in your board job description, you still have to continuously remind them that that's needed, especially when it comes to grants. If your organization is writing grants to a funder, such as a community foundation or a private foundation or a corporate foundation, it is so important that you can say on there, we have a 100% board support financially. Because when your board buys in, then that funder knows that your board is there for your organization. They're going to support you 100%. It does not matter how much they give. Every board member will have different personal financial situations. So it's hard to say you must give X amount to each board member, because sometimes you don't know what they might be going through financially. You know, right now is a special, especially is evident with some businesses are shut down or are at half capacity, a third capacity. So those business owners or those professionals, their income has been cut drastically, as well as maybe all of our incomes. So we may not have as much for charitable giving as we have in the past. So it's just best to say, please just give. Any amount helps. As you all know, in the nonprofit world, it's amazing how we can stretch a dollar. We can take a dollar and feed so many people. We can take a dollar and shelter so many animals. It is amazing what the nonprofit world can do with a dollar. So, but we aren't always good about asking. And it also goes back to that kind of that fear of asking. I promise it's not a big bad word to ask for money. It's not a big bad thing if somebody tells you no. But as a board member, they should know you're gonna be expected to give. Orientation. This is something that a lot of nonprofits think, okay, they're coming onto our board so they know who we are. Well, they might know who you are, but they don't know it on a board member level. It's always good to even possibly put together a notebook that has everything about your organization, your history, a synopsis of your history, so that they know. They may have been associated with your organization as a volunteer for several years, but they may not know the story about how you started or who helped you start. Who was your founder? How did that happen? What did you start with? Did you start with only doing one thing, or did you start, it's an interesting story. Every nonprofit's got an interesting story, so make sure your board members know that story. But also bring them up to speed on your financial situation. Show them all your financial reports, not just when they get to the board meeting that first time. They need to already be acclimated with the financial report. Give them a copy of your bylaws. Hopefully they'll read it. Some read them completely, some don't. Some board members really love to read them. And then you'll always have those board members that will come in and say, hey, I have a question about some of your bylaws. But they'll need to know a lot of that as a board member. Then they'll need to know about your different programs you're doing. Because say they're on the development committee, then they need to know those programs. They don't need to know them intimately, but they need to know them well enough to go raise money for them. Then if they're on the program committee, they do need to know them a little more intimately. They also need to know who the other board members are and what their affiliation is, either with your organization or maybe their professional position, all of that. So we usually will bring new board members in for each given year that they're coming in and have either a one-on-one or a small group orientation with them separate from the board meeting prior to their first board meeting that they would ever attend as a new board member, and go through it so that they can ask the questions in more of that private setting that they may not want to as a new board member in front of the full board, because they may feel, even as adults, we can still feel like we're going to ask the dumb question, and board members are that way too. So they'll want to become a little more acclimated before they come to that board meeting. Sometimes it's good to have a buddy system. We know in schools they'll do that. When a student comes into a new school, they may have an existing student kind of, be their buddy. Do that with your board. Have a buddy system with an existing board member and a new board member, because that way they constantly have somebody to reach out to ask questions. The new board member can ask the existing one, but also for accountability. This way, the existing board members can kind of help bring the new ones along when it comes to all the expectations of being a board member, without it being quite as, calling everybody out in front of the group. So it's always good to do that. Everybody on your board, even if they're not on the development committee, needs to be able to raise money for your organization, even at a small level. So give them those tools. Give them different levels of tools. Give them the very simple. If they really fumble over asking for money, give them just the simple, basic, I hate to call it an elevator speech, but give them the very simple, basic, saying your mission statement, your tagline, something, all the way up to those development people that are going to really be out there asking for the money. So give them those tools. Don't expect that they are going to be able to just have them. Maybe it's a sheet, hold on, kind of like just like this, something that they can stick in their pocket, in their purse, that, they may not have to actually make the ask, but they can take this out and just give them to somebody if they say, hey, have you ever heard of this organization? Then let the board self-assess themselves. It's always good, and a lot of times that's the chairman's role. The chairman needs to then make sure everybody is doing their duties. You hope that you've already put all those steps in place that you won't have to come to that, but if need be, it still needs to be there. And then when it comes to the meetings, these need to be run very efficiently. The one thing that can sour a relationship with a board member and possibly a current donor is to have meetings that just go nowhere, that is just unorganized, that don't tell them anything, that don't do anything. So your agendas need to be very well structured. I don't think I have time to really go into all of that, and I'm happy if anybody ever wants to reach out to me to share what our agendas look like, or any other agendas I've seen that are very good. They need to have your minutes from the prior meeting so that everybody can see what was talked about at that prior meeting, so they can see, were they correct, or if they weren't at that meeting, they can catch up. Your financials, you need to report the financial situation of your organization, because it's important that your board knows your financial situation. Any new business you need to discuss with them that has not been discussed before, go through all of that, outline it, even have who is going to be making those presentations. Is it a staff person? Is it a board person? If it's a board person, make sure they know before that board meeting they're making that presentation. And then any old business. If there was something presented at a board that you need to circle back on, then that needs to be on there. And then sometimes it's good at the end of the meeting, if time allows, for the executive director to either acknowledge something good that a staff member has done, praise a staff member to the board, or tell them an interesting tidbit that may have happened in your organization since the last time you met. Boards like to hear little stories like that. And so those types of things are very important in your agenda, and it needs to be very well run, but timing is also important. As I'm watching my clock right now, that you give them all the information they need, but without dragging it out to, a couple of hours. An hour is about the most time that you should expect your board to be in a meeting. There will be times you need them to be there longer because of whatever's on your agenda. If you know that, let them know ahead of time, because sometimes if you're meeting at lunch, this may be a lunch hour for these board members and they've got to get back to work. But if they haven't allotted that extra time, they're going to have to leave your meeting early. Or if they've had to schedule other meetings before or after, let them know how long they need to allocate for your meeting. And also make your meeting days the same day each month or each quarter, however often you meet. Try to make them the same day and the same time each month. Put them on the board members' calendars. Do a calendar invite for the whole year that already puts a slot on their calendar, so that you aren't asking them to log it into their calendar. You're doing it for them. And that way it's on there. And when they are having meetings come up or any other work items coming up, they've already got that meeting on their calendar. So hopefully yours will come first and they won't, regret and not come to your meeting. I was trying to see if I see any more chats. Okay, we're doing good on that. So, RSVPs, you need to make sure you remind them, even though it's on their calendar, remind them several days in advance. Say you have a Wednesday board meeting, maybe on Friday, send them out a reminder that says, hey, got a board meeting. You may want to even send your whole packet for the board that they can review prior to coming to your meeting, and say, we've got these items that I need a quorum for, or I need everybody to be there, or I need whatever. Let them know that, and then say, please RSVP, so that you know, especially if it's a lunch meeting and you're providing lunch, because you don't want to have too little food or really too much food. Although in the nonprofit world, if you have too much food left over at your board meeting, your staff will love you, because our staff love it when we have board meetings, because they know that there's possibly leftovers that will be pretty yummy and they can take advantage of. So that is those 8 items are what we think are very important when it comes to managing your boards. I see another chat question. Let's see. It said, let me read the question. I'm not sure this will be covered. Are there any board management tools to help maintain board documents, facilitate board votes, or surveys? I'm not exactly sure on some of that question, but what is always good, you take minutes at your board meetings. And so whoever's taking those minutes will have the votes that are taken. That will be in your minutes. As far as board documentation, we have a staff person, and usually you do, that keeps all your paperwork. Maybe it's the administrative assistant at your organization, or a receptionist or secretary, whatever they're called at yours, or it could be your bookkeeper, your finance officer. They would keep anything like confidentiality agreements that your board need to sign, or any of those conflicts of interest. That would all be kept in one place, because when you do have your audit, it will need to be presented. Your auditors are going to want to see that. As far as our board agendas, we now keep all of that virtually in a folder. So it's all done in our software system, not software system, but we keep it in a file, so that, you know, once again, when your auditors need to see your board minutes and your agendas to see whatever voting items maybe or such, you can pull that out virtually, very independent, very easily. I don't know of actually any tools like a program or anything. I'm sure they're out there, but I'm not aware of the exact name of one. But the way that, you know, keeping it in a folder within your computer system, in your server, however your system is set up, is a pretty good, easy way to do it. Let's see. Oh, y'all got a lot of chats coming in. Let me check the other. All right, Microsoft Teams is a good one. Boardable. Okay, 5 minutes. All right, this is an example of the board description, job description, and you'll see it goes over, you know, the mission, the purpose of the board, but then the responsibilities of each board member. I have shared these slides with Brittany with the Cary Center, so I'm sure she's going to get them out to everybody so that you're not having to take notes. And this may be recorded, I can't really tell. So that is, you know, but once again, have them sign it. That's very important. Let's see what else. All right, this is something that is very interesting that we have started, and we call it a board engagement matrix. It has everything that the board members are supposed to do on it, as you'll see across the top. And I know it's kind of blurry, but I just couldn't make it real crisp when I put it in this presentation. Then you have every board member name down the side, and the board members are the ones that kind of came up with this, and they wanted the gold stars when they completed something. We send this out every time we send out a board packet. So every board meeting, this is included for every board member to see. It's not to shame them. It's not to do anything. But I was really tickled when we were coming up with this, that the board member said, oh, can I have a star? Can I get a gold star? Kind of like they're back in kindergarten or something. So you'll see, this is a good way also to keep up with things, because then they can see, have I done everything? Have I not done everything? So it's a great, wait, sorry. Let me go back to that. I was trying to get to the chats because something just, well, sorry, y'all. Am I off now? Did I lose the chat? There it is. Okay, sorry. So I think am I about out of time, or how much time do I have left?
You have about 3 minutes left.
Okay. So I can't let me get back to that. Sorry. I'm going to give up on that one. Sorry, y'all. But I just think it is good, just when you think everybody has their board set up just like they want it. But when you go back and look at all the suggestions that I gave, and that's what they are. They're suggestions. They're good tools to follow, because you may not be as structured properly as you think you are. We were even in that situation. That's kind of how we came up with this. But just keep in mind, your board members are a fabulous source for you as a nonprofit to utilize, but just don't take them for granted. Make them feel just as appreciated as your staff do, or as you make you feel your staff, because your board members are going to help spread the news of your nonprofit so much further into the community than you and your staff could probably ever do. And so I'm happy to see if there's any other questions, and I know I went really fast, but the time really didn't allow me to kind of stop and really go into depth on a lot of things. But once again, I'm here to help in any way. If there's any time I can ever help, we've even come in and sat down with boards before to help bring them into this structure. So if we can ever help in that regard, we are happy to. So I hope you enjoy the rest of the summit and you get a lot out of this, and stay safe and wash your hands. Bye.